we all live very busy lives. So the average person now is spending half as much time preparing food as the previous generation. And what that's meant is people are opting for fast food. Problem is most fast food is junk food.
Welcome back to the Fitt Insider Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Veneri. Today I'm joined by James McMaster, CEO of Huel. In this episode, we discuss the brand's mission to deliver nutritious, convenient, and affordable meals. James shares the company's evolution from a single powdered shake into a growing product range. Plus, we cover its commitment to sustainability, customer obsession, and the rise of holistic health consumers. Let's get into it. Today's episode is brought to you by EGYM. EGYM provides fitness and health facilities with smart workout solutions built on its ecosystem of hardware, software, and partners. But it's more than cool tech. Their connected training experience delivers business results while helping members reach their wellness goals. If you run a gym, health club, YMCA, or any kind of fitness facility, you should check them out. Visit egym.com to learn more. Hi, James. Welcome to Fitt Insider. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, excited to chat. A lot going on with Huel and the broader kind of plant-based and nutrition and health space. So lots to cover. Kind of as I mentioned, I've been following what you guys are building and up to for quite a while now. But maybe for folks who aren't familiar, could you just give us the kind of quick backstory both about yourself and the company, then we'll get into it.
Sure. So Huel's coming up to its 9th birthday this summer. Started off very much trying to solve some of the problems relating to food and drink in the world. Namely, we all live very busy lives. So the average person now is spending half as much time preparing food as the previous generation. And what that's meant is people are opting for fast food. Problem is most fast food is junk food. We've got huge issues in all major countries around the world about obesity, vitamin and mineral deficiency, fiber deficiency. We've got huge carbon footprint problems with high meat consumption. We've got hugely growing population. We've got the Amazon being cut down to make way for soybean plantations and grazing more cattle. So all these problems into one, and we basically try and solve it by saying we're going to create a food product for you that is really quick and easy, really nutritious. It's got all the vitamins and minerals. It's got all the protein, all the fiber, all the fatty acids, all the carbohydrates. And we'll make it good value for money. So we start from $1.5, $2 a meal. And then we sell it easily to you online through Huel.com. And that's really expanded heavily. So the original product was a powder, mix it with water and shake it up. But we've hugely evolved since then. We're even selling mac and cheese pastas. We're selling daily greens powder. We're selling in some parts of the world A to Z vitamin drink. We're selling some nutrition bars. We're doing ready to drink bottles. So the whole thing is just really expanded. But from that basic idea, you can see on the wall behind me being very mission led, trying to make a positive impact on the world of convenient nutrition.
Yeah, there's so as you're ticking off the challenges and problems that we face, certainly no shortage of issues to try to address, and coming to it from this angle, especially when you think about the number of kind of big food companies that are selling the opposite product, right? When you first set out to do this, you mentioned a whole host of kind of products now, but was that initial vision, hey, we're going to have this one product, or was it always, we're going to have a variety of different products and tackle this as like a holistic solution? And how did that evolve?
Yeah, Joe, I probably should have answered your previous question as well about me and background and how I fit in. So I built food and drink brands prior to Huel in the dessert space or the infant nutrition space. And then Julian, who was the founder of Huel, he started it as a hobby. He'd already had a successful career, sold his business sort of on the beach slightly, trying to work out what to do. And he was interested in nutrition and creating a way of finding ways of easily eating the right calories. So he started it as a bit of fun. And then after about a year and a half, they gave me a call and said, hey, come on in. And this is really fun, exploding. Off we go from there. So I think it was sometimes things are very precise and companies on paper sound good, but if they haven't got the right heart, maybe they don't work as well. I think the magic of Huel was it was a bit more of a passion project of why not? He wanted to do it for a few days a week for a bit of fun and wanted to do something he was really proud of to show his son, look, here's a business I've created. It's good for the world. If it takes off, it takes off. It doesn't really matter. And actually, maybe if you're trying to do it to solve the world's problems and rather than just make money, you've probably got that extra level of X factor that elevates it, and it's gone from there. So I think also the look and feel. So I've just got a shaker here. Like the logo is very minimal and honest and open and vulnerable and transparent, and that's the same with the rest of the packaging. It's become very iconic, and the website's very open as well. We are strong on social with customers, very two-way conversation. So the whole thing started in a modern, transparent way, and we launch new products because customers say, "Hey, can you do the following? Solve this problem for me." So it feels like it's a nice, feel-good story, and it's probably harder behind the scenes than I'm making out there. But it starts off with the right intentions in mind. I think that means you've got stronger integrity and care for what you do.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that one to as a passion project, kind of getting off the ground, and certainly I don't want to say as a side project, but like you said, it's solving a problem that Julian had himself, and then that gaining traction, and then that resonating with people, and that being an important part of a lot of founders' stories as something gets off the ground. But then there's that, and I think especially for a product like this, initially, even when it first hit my radar, it was like, oh, is this a meal replacement? Kind of like other weight gainer shakes or protein shakes, or other, even at that time, maybe something like a soy lent was also kind of out in the world and with a much different kind of approach. And so then as you start to learn about it, how does it differentiate, or how did you even think about it internally? Like, no, we don't want to be a quote unquote supplement, and we don't want to be this, kind of sci-fi, just like only drink this one thing forever. How did you put those pieces together?
Oh, it's fascinating because we still get that today. Like I saw something on social of someone saying, "I'm going to have Huel for 30 days. That's all I'm going to eat." And there's all these comments, and you get some people saying, "Oh, I love Huel. It's great," or some people saying, "Oh my god, this is going to sound awful. What are you doing?" And it's not really meant for that. We think of it as the inconvenient meal. So if you use me as an example, Monday to Friday, breakfast, lunch, and snacks, all I have is Huel, and I know I'm getting amazing nutrition. It's good value for money or free for me, fine. And it's all my plant-based meals. I'm about 85% plant-based. I worked out through a combination of that, and I'm very limited on my meat and dairy intake. And people who get it really get it, and the naysayers are people who probably have issues in their own life. They struggle with their own food relationship with food, which a lot of people do. It's quite tricky. And then I think what's happened over time is when you see a powder, I think the brain, for a lot of people, they're conditioned to say a powder must equal protein, and actually our powder equals a meal. And then we've evolved from there. And I think what's happened is when we've got wider product ranges, like the ready to drink bottle, like a bar, or I said we do some pastas and noodles, they go, okay. And some people who may not consider drinking their breakfast via mixing powder with water, but are really happy to have Korean barbecue noodles from us. And it just keeps opening up new groups of people. So I think the whole brand over time has widened in its appeal, and we probably get less of that kind of critique that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, there's so many different motivations. Like you mentioned the convenience factor and the sustainability and the climate and the whole nutrition aspect. When you do talk to consumers, and maybe this has shifted over time, is it does it over index to one of those things? Is there like primarily one thing that they look at Huel and like this is the reason why I do it? Or do you have to kind of diversify that messaging across those channels and across those customers to for it to really resonate? Maybe that's still evolving.
Yeah, it is still evolving. Absolutely. Like for instance, we've got a daily greens powder we launched in the US last year and in the UK last month actually. That's that's a new. There are some existing Huel customers buying it, or there are new customers. The person who's buying a noodles may not be the person buying powder, so it has evolved a lot there. When we So the great thing about being an online brand, you've got so much insight and data coming at you, both from customers directly, and then you've got general social listening, and you hear quite a consistent message. So convenience and nutrition, top two by a long way in terms of how people associate Huel into their lives. You do get people going, I'm going to buy it because it's plant-based. It's a certain gang. You do get people going, I'm buying it because it's good value for money. Great. But often you're getting busy people in their lives. They might be mums and dads. They might be young professionals. They might be people just juggling stuff who want the easy way to get amazing nutrition. And that's how we zone in on it.
For me, it's like thinking about this evolution you mentioned going on 9 or 10 years at this point. So not exactly a startup in the sense of a new company, but startup. And I think a lot of companies are right to approach it this way. And like we're nimble and we're flexible and we're evolving and we're continuing to adjust to the market. But thinking back on it, were there any inflection points that were maybe like unlocks to go from, hey, we have this one product and now we have a couple products and now it seems to be really resonating and we want to double down on this because it is easy sometimes to gloss over those things to be like, we created this and then next thing you know, it's flying off the shelves, so to speak.
Okay, two things come to mind. Firstly, the international footprint. I think because we were Huel.com direct consumer only initially, it's actually much easier to go international than a retail first brand. So it was year two, we started in the UK. Within 24 months, we're in US and Germany. If we were a retail only brand, it might take a year just to find the right buyer in another country, and they might go, oh, I'm not doing a range review for another year. So I think if you want to accelerate quickly, a direct consumer strategy is quite a big inflection point for us. And suddenly, if I look at our revenue now, the majority of revenue is coming outside of the UK. So if we hadn't done that early inflection point of going into new markets, we'd be a smaller business. The downside of that is when you go more international, you're lighting new fires everywhere, and what's a better analogy? Juggling lots of balls or spinning plates, whatever. And that's hard. That's hard to do. And we've got offices in New York, and we've got London. We've got where I am today, about 1 hour north of London. We've got Germany. We've got people in Japan. It's sort of juggling all these bits there. So that comes to mind as a inflection point. The other one I would say would be the convenience aspect. So I think it's a convenient product, the launch product, whereas powder, water, shake it up, wonderful, long shelf life, put your powder on your desk in the office, put it in your kitchen at home, all great. What we've found is the pre-mixed version in the bottle is obviously even more convenient, and it's super smooth. It's been mixed together in the factory rather than yourself shaking it or a blender. And I think the average person probably finds that an easier product to go for. And it's been particularly good when we tried it out in retail. So it's in the UK, it's in Germany retail, and that's almost like a whole new area for us. So we've pivoted from doing online only to online and retail, which I think we're quite rare to. A food and drink brands doing online is really rare. It's very hard to scale. If you're selling a product that's £5 or $5 and you're not eating it very often, you're not going to get a high basket size. You're not going to get much repeat. But we sell meals, and we're rare that we sell meals, and people have them very much, so we can make an online model work. So we're probably slow in doing some retail, but I think the majority of food and drink brands start in retail and it can't ever make online work.
Yeah, that there have been a couple kind of more recently that using direct to consumer online as like a launching pad and then slowly getting into retail. How do you think about that in terms of, is it a priority? Is it a percentage of revenue? Is it a goal to kind of say like, we want to make like a dedicated retail launch? Or is it, you just think of it, hey, we will be opportunistic in terms of expanding where it makes sense?
We're still half figuring it out. I think if your DNA of your business is .com and we're run that way, trying to suddenly do retail and online at the same time is really hard. So we're still in that transition to become an omnichannel business. And that varies per market as to how mature we are. So UK is the home market. It's been here for 9 years. The brand is more well known. It's a very simple market versus say US or maybe sort of if I compare it to parts of Europe like France or Germany. So US, you've got way more retailers spread across the country, whereas UK you might have, it's a much smaller geographic region. You've got 5 key retailers. You do deals centrally with them. There's no broker network, etc. In say France and Germany, you've got a field sales force team where you might get a listing in a store, but it's the store manager that decides whether you're on the shelves. So you have to have a field sales team. So trying to win across different markets, different categories, and different channels is a really hard thing to do. So we're constantly evolving, going, how do we pace ourselves? So we're in I think when you're in the startup stage, it's definitely sprint mode, and we've been in sprint mode. If we carry on in sprint mode, we're just going to fall over. So we like to think of ourselves in marathon mode and occasional sprints, and be a bit more strategic thinking on how we work out channel, country, and product category.
It makes sense. There's also that element of you just lose control. You lose like a little bit of control in terms of the customer journey and the education and where you're reaching them, especially when you think about some retailers. Does it what aisle does it go in really? And then how are people seeing it? Is it next to a protein powder? Is it off somewhere else? And who's responsible for making sure that that's how the customer like thinks and sees it?
Particularly, actually, as the range has evolved. Like we just sold powder in a pouch or sachet. You've got probably one or two choices of where you might fit. But with our product range now, there could be loads of parts of the grocery store we fit into. And again, that changes by market. So, sometimes we're with long life milk. Sometimes we're next to yogurts or dairy or protein shakes or sandwiches or carbonated drinks. It just can sit anywhere. So I think it will take time to create categories. And particularly we've got the food bit, and then we've got the supplements bit where we've got the daily greens powder, and then we've got the A to Z vitamin drink.
The Fit Insider Podcast is brought to you by our friends at EGYM. This is an exciting partnership for us, and not just because EGYM makes some of the most innovative fitness products out there, but because the entire EGYM team, led by their CEO Philip, is committed to making health, fitness, and well-being more accessible for everyone. And that's a mission we can get behind. By combining their smart equipment with integrated software and hundreds of connected partner brands, EGYM helps fitness facilities stand out by delivering a personalized, gamified workout experience that improves outcomes and member engagement. So if you're a gym or health club operator thinking about how to best serve your members while driving business results, go see what EGYM is up to at egym.com. Yeah, has there been anything, as you're talking about that, just kind of coming to mind, that has worked outside of that? There's obviously the retail, and then there's lots of different channels to market and acquire customers digitally, from like pop-ups or events or community. Like, is there anything offline that like has worked that isn't just like kind of traditional retail?
Do you know our number one driver of customer acquisition is word of mouth? So it sounds really cheesy, but we've got a list of how to be a hooligan values, and the number one is make customers happy. And we're just relentless with the focus on the website, the delivery, the speed, the box, the customer service response time. We're strong on social, both in terms of nutrition knowledge, but also we're quite witty and a bit irreverent and a bit fun as well. And that just circle drives this feel good factor. So most people, when they go, how did you hear about Huel and want to try it? It's usually, oh, a friend of mine or someone in my office or this, and they find it intriguing. I think it's helpful as well with some of the big pouches. It's quite noticeable, particularly in an office environment, and someone gets out this pouch. You might have a few hundred people might see that and sort of be intrigued by it. So we focus a lot on the basics actually to drive this sort of offline virality element to it. People like to talk about Huel online. Both we'll push advertising, but also others just want to talk about it. So we sort of ride that wave and push a mixture of referral, advertising, doing a good job, and just trying to get people talking about us.
So people were talking about you. I don't know if it was the last couple of weeks. There was like a photo floating around of a Huel tattoo that somebody had gotten. That talk about word of mouth and organic marketing.
Yeah, it's funny. No, the funny story behind that is our co-founder James. It's actually his leg, and he was on vacation somewhere West Coast, LA, I think, and someone took that picture without him knowing, and it got sent around, and it's kind of gone viral. And it's actually him just walking around in LA.
That's even better. That's a little growth hack. Other founders can get the logo tattooed. And
Yeah, actually, both our founders have got Huel tattoos. So
as you're talking about the starting to diversify the product range. And even if it were just the powder, this certainly is important. Just safety, testing ingredients, ingredient transparency, knowing where the things are coming from, making sure that they're certified to whatever degrees that you go through. How challenging is that to put these things together, test a new product, not only make sure is it something people want and is it convenient in the nutrition aspect, but is it safe? Does it meet the standards? And how do we ensure that as we are shipping globally?
Okay, so interesting. When you're in the startup phase, by nature, you're putting more trust in others. So we would create a recipe, and a co-packer would take it and they'd go and source the ingredients and they would make the product, and we would do some level of testing, and you kind of putting yourself a little bit in their hands fairly early on. And like, I've had this from experience with different brands. We brought in an in-house team on procurement and technical and quality to own that ourselves. So we started saying, right, we're going to do all the legwork. We want that exact pea protein. We want that exact MCT coconut powder. And we're going to specify what different co-packers use. And obviously, we've got a global supply chain. So we make in the US, we make in UK, we make in Europe, but we might buy globally the same source of an ingredient that our team have specified, and we send it around the world, and we know we've done all the right testing on that. So first couple of years, huge reliance on co-packers, then very quick early investment, which felt quite scary at the time in terms of the amount of money we were spending on teams and flying and procurement, but it's paid back, and it means we've got huge control. So you can actually get quite a lot of variation in taste just by different batches. And we spend a lot of time refining, or sometimes we might blend one batch with another to keep the consistency. We've got an in-house taste panel as well. So consistency of taste is important. Quality of ingredients is important. Sustainability of where we buy ingredients from. And we've got teams going around the world again, looking at doing audits and testing as well. And then there's the actual product integrity too. So there's lots of aspects to it. But I think we invested pretty early on in an in-house team, which I'm not sure many brands do.
Yeah, there's the mission driven aspect that you all have, and then continuing to invest in that quality and adhering to some of these values. And that's, I think a lot of people kind of do that. They put that on the wall, and maybe they are able to do it and maybe they aren't able to do it, but continuing to do that. And then when you think across the landscape, it maybe we don't have to name specific companies, but I was kind of doing this in preparation for the conversations. Like, there's not a ton of people in this category when it comes to like whole food, convenience, global distribution. How do you think of the landscape or competition? Like, what does Huel have to do relative to others, or just to your mission to continue on this path? And like, where is that, if it's white space or opportunity or just overall vision continuing to go?
So I'm a very ambitious person. We are a very high achieving gang of people, and we've got a very strong belief that Huel can be a truly global brand. And usually, global brands eventually get to $1 billion of revenue, right? And we're a long way off from that, fine. But it's quite a nice long term vision to aim for. And when we think about different things we could be doing to get there, there's a lot of focus on juggling the different balls, like I said earlier, and sometimes being a bit patient and going, do you know what, we could be doing this, but it might hurt us now because we're going to take our eye off the ball there. So we've got huge confidence in that, and we focus a lot on ourselves rather than competition. And if you think about it, from a product category, when we first started, it's the powder, and you can go, okay, we compete with other powders. Not really, actually. We compete with breakfast cereals. We compete with fast food outlets for your lunch. We now sell bars. We compete with bars. So we compete with a lot of things. Anything you could be putting into your body that is a healthy food, we compete with. And the whole of evolution towards health and wellness as a sort of joint category, and food being part of that. It's about thinking of ourselves as more of a lifestyle brand rather than an actual product. And we never really think about a category and a product. It's more, what's Huel there for? It's about making your life better and healthier and easier and more convenient, and being something that you have a very strong love brand relationship with. which is why we spend so much time on social listening to understand what people want, what they say about the brand. And look, you can't win with everyone. You get lovers and haters. That's fine. But we know what we stand for. And people love the fact that we're the nutrition experts. And they love the fact we've got a wider range now. They love the fact we're in multiple countries. And we zone in very sort of blinkers on, focus on the customer. And retail has forced us to be much more thinking about competition, but in our DNA, it's very much do the right thing for us and our customer, and good things will happen.
Yeah, it's difficult to do, right? Keep that internal and disciplined focus and continue to adhere to that. Like, we kind of think about it in across multiple businesses to this point. It's like the right thing is the right thing. And like, if you keep doing that, it rewards itself. But it can be challenging.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing now is as we start to do a little bit of retail, on retail, you might have a shelf space and they say, we've got 4 brands. Why are we going to pick you, not this brand? And you start dealing with margin, and you might do a product that a buyer might say, oh, I think you should do, I don't know, a cherry flavor. But that's just one person's opinion. Do you go and make a cherry flavor because the buyer said, I want to do a cherry flavor? That's quite hard to say no to, but we're quite strong. And what's quite useful actually is the data. So I think if I look at retail stores around the world and how they have evolved, I think it's basically becoming more detail heavy. When you've got a direct consumer business, you can say, well, we know the repeat rate by flavor. We know those 2 flavors better than these 2 flavors. If you're going to list 2 flavors, it's those 2 flavors. And that's quite powerful to have.
The other thing that is related to this conversation, and we've touched on it a couple of times, but not directly, is while you're doing this down the path of nutrition and sustainability and individual and planet and environment, there's like the whole world of, food, big food, like unhealthy options, obesity crisis, like all these things that are continuing to ratchet up. And a lot of times I talk to different founders and folks in the space, and it's, we need, kind of like what you said, we need to remain focused. We can control the controllables and do the things that we can do, and we can't worry necessarily about the outside world. But all those choices are still there, and you are competing the same way that a fitness equipment company, right? They might say, our competition isn't, not doing anything. It's Netflix, it's pizza, it's all this other stuff outside of, or maybe it is through the work that you're doing. But how do you think about like changing the world, the things that are happening, the series of choices and companies and things that are making it so difficult to live a healthy lifestyle, and ultimately more difficult for Huel to do what you do? Like, do you think about, and how do you think about just like the alternative?
My personal belief is that we probably reached a bit of a peak on unhealthy lifestyle already. There's so much you read every day about slightly scaremongering of what could be happening in terms of people's bodies, huge cardiovascular disease problems, huge global warming problems from a planet point of view, scarcity of food as we get billions more people in the next few decades. So it felt like COVID was a help in some ways for that conversation to happen more. People generally became more unhealthy during COVID and ate more bad food and watched more Netflix and sat on their sofas a bit more. And what we feel and see is more people taking health and wellness more seriously. And I just feel like there's a bit of a snowball effect going on. And maybe it starts off with the more pioneering type people who are willing to care more about it. So like I'm the kind of person I'll wear a Whoop, and I did a body scan yesterday, a DEXA body scan to look at my visceral fat and my bone density. And people start talking more about that. Like I did a post on LinkedIn last month about cold showers, and people really wanted to talk about it. And I felt if I made that same post a couple of years ago, I'm not sure people would care in the same way. So what we've done in our bodies, how we think about our mental health, how we think about how we go to work. Like at Huel, we offer free mental health therapy, and we almost force everyone. You have to opt out when you first join. You have to do a session unless you really want to opt out, and most people don't opt out. And you can carry on doing as many times as you want. So we're very much sort of that whole holistic. How do you feel? How much sleep you get? What food you put into your body? All those bits there. I feel like in the workplace that I see, and I know it's our company, but other companies as well, it's just starting to build nicely. Maybe the kind of person who sat at home eating their fried chicken, watching TV, we're gonna find that hard to reach now. But in terms of how well we've done so far, it's about getting the next level of person, and in decades to come, it will have a domino effect. But right now, there's lots of people out there more interested in health and wellness, I think, than they were a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, and there's a momentum happening, which we're grateful to play a part in.
Yeah, it's something that I often kind of revisit too, because we're talking about it. I'm talking to other founders. We're covering it in the newsletter. We're investing in companies in this space. And it's like the optimistic take and continuing to have to push to that place is like the net positive is that if we offer more solutions and more companies and more just everything in the direction of the holistic health and personalization and prevention, like the net good will move things in the right direction. And it's kind of continuing to come back to that and maintain that optimism when you do see a lot of the negative statistics that continue to come out.
Yeah, look, sometimes it doesn't take much for people to change their mindset on something. It might be an article you read. It might be a well-known person who you see them eating a certain type of food. And people have access to more information and more clinical studies than ever before. And that filters through. It's like obesity is at record levels. It can't keep going up to the level where 100% of people are obese. It just can't get that level. Well, I hope it doesn't get that level. But it's I do feel confident. I do feel confident, and we see it in the data. Like, we're a medium-sized business. We're not a startup anymore. I mean, it's not just us. There's lots of brands doing health and wellness, and I can't wait to go to Expo West and see the latest there, because it feels like that's the pioneering place of interesting brands, and it trickles down into the wider space. And you go into a grocery store, most parts of the world, there's way more healthy food choices there than there've ever been, particularly made up in convenience food, because most people are a bit lazy. Most people are running around. They're busy working. They've got a smartphone. They're on call a lot. And I said earlier, like, people are spending half as much time preparing food. And if you go for bad food and you're prepared food, you got a problem. But there's more healthy, convenient choices, both from us and others. And I feel confident that we're going to make some progress.
Yeah, keep moving things in the right direction. Maybe one more question before we get you out of here. And thinking about, we covered a lot of ground in terms of what Huel's doing and what the potential future looks like. And is there anything on the maybe near-term roadmap that you're excited about, or we should look out for, or that you would just kind of point people to?
Well, we're exhibiting for the first time at Expo West. That's exciting. And we've always got product launches coming out. We've got another product coming out in a month that people have been asking for a long time, a couple of years actually. So we shared that with the team last week. We do an all hands meeting every 2 weeks. It's called All Hooligans. And Tim, and our product team, he presented it, and everyone's really excited for that. So yeah, watch this space.
Yeah, exciting and a lot to look out for. We'll be following along. Website, social, where best place to find it or follow along?
Yeah, Huel.com, or type Huel in on social. You'll find us easily.
One more thing before you head out. Help us spread the word. Take a minute to rate and review the podcast, subscribe to the YouTube channel, or share this episode with a friend. And if you like conversations like this, you'll love the Fitt Insider newsletter. We send it every Tuesday. The link is in the description. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you back here next week.